Thank you. I wanted to build on what we talked about last month. I mentioned last month we're a national online letting agency. I'm most excited by the amount of inquiries we get from tenants, which was approximately a third of a million, which gives us huge insight into sort of tenant behaviours, where tenants are looking for their next rental and so on, which was useful for these updates. I went through this flowchart last month, and in essence, for those that weren't here, for those landlords that do sell properties because of mortgage interest relief and so on, which is the minority, it drives that supply-demand bit further in balancement and will drive rents up. The majority of landlords that don't sell because of mortgage interest relief, a lot are thinking of putting that extra cost onto higher rents and driving rents up. And we talked about the fact that rent arrears over the next 12 months, I think, are going to be the biggest area of concern for us as landlords. In the last 12 months, just under a third of all landlords have had rent arrears from a couple of surveys we've done. So I see that being an area that is going to become a bigger concern for all of us. So I just wanted to build on that this month in terms of our rental income is a big revenue stream for us, and we need to ensure that we're protecting that because there is more vulnerability because of the proportion of someone's take-home pay that is going on rent than ever before. And I just wanted to bring up a few statistics that have been talked about in the papers, and that is for people that own their own properties, on average, 18% of their take-home pay is going on mortgages to pay the cost of their mortgages. But for tenants that are renting property, on average, it's 34% of their take-home pay going on rent. Now, I've seen stats for London where it's 57%, but on average, there is substantially a greater proportion of someone's take-home pay going on rent than for repaying mortgages. The other interesting bit, someone at the back may not be able to see, is that 4 out of 10, 40% of all tenants, don't have a backup plan should they lose their job in terms of being able to pay their rent. Most of us with mortgages will have insurance policies or life insurance policies in place to cover us, but 40% of all tenants don't have a backup plan should they lose their job if they become ill, for example. And the other interesting bit I put on here is I don't see that they're going to be made homeless immediately. What I mean by that is we have to wait until they've missed 2 rent payments before we can issue a Section 21. Then that's a couple of months, and then you have to get a court hearing, and then you have to get bailiffs, and it's quite easy for that to become a 6-month period throughout. So it's not. This can be a really big problem for us as landlords, and I see this becoming a growing one going forward. And this leads into. I am not an insurance broker, but leads into having insurance where you can protect yourself. And there's rent guarantee insurance that now exists. I'm a big fan of it because actually the cost of taking out rent guarantee insurance is actually really low in relation to what cover you're actually getting. It's approximately about £150, £160 for a year. The devil in the detail, what I would look for when you're looking at providers, is to make sure that there is no excess. For life assurance, it's sort of all right if there's a 3-month or 6-month excess period because it's years that you'd be taking that out for in the unfortunate scenario that you were taking it out. But from a tenant's perspective, if you've got voids for 3 or 6 months, the time it takes to generally evict, you actually don't want an excess period. You want it to start straight away. So the devil is in the detail. We offer rent guarantee insurance through Upad. We have a provider that does it. You can use that link, upad.co.uk/rent-protection. But the reason for mentioning this is I'm not an insurance broker, but it's almost about your risk profile. And I see the risk of default increasing over the coming 12 months for the reasons we mentioned earlier. And I think there's some really easy, sensible ways to protect ourselves for this growth in this risk factor that's coming along in order for us to be able to sleep better at night and to not be concerned by the revenue. So it was just bringing that to the forefront. And I see over the next 12 months greater rent arrears as rent becomes a greater proportion of someone's take-home pay. And it's almost like a buyer beware bit, and for us to be aware of the situation before it becomes too late. I'm just a fan of protecting our revenue streams rather than just leaving it to luck or fate, as it were, in terms of what happens. So that was what I wanted to cover off. There's a guide that we do that you can download from that link, which gives you £40 off anything at Upad. I hope you found that useful. I hope everyone can get home safely later on this evening. Take care.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.